Hi everyone, welcome to Saga Saturdays. Today we're going to be polishing some buttons and I'm going to show you guys how we're putting together our assemblies. So, first things first, take our trusty drill, a unpolished button. We're going to be offering a few different options on these. Polished, we might get into some PVD coatings in the future, which would be really cool. And the straight up machine finish, which is really pretty, but we want to offer a few more things. So we're going to do a nice polished button that's kind of reminiscent of a high quality Swiss watch. So first things first, we load it up in here. Safety glasses, very important. And we're going to hit it with the hard wheel to start. There we go. We've removed pretty much all the toolpath lines. I'm using my finger as a guide here, going back and forth to ensure that I'm not going to cause any damage to this wheel or any uneven wear, because we use that for a lot of other things. Now from there, I'm going to go to our flap wheel here. It's about a 400 grit 3M wheel. Now we're also going to be polishing down on the shaft here because that's where the balls travel. So we got about a 16 RA finish here, which is pretty good off the lathe. We want to bring it down into the single digits to ensure that the button has a very smooth operation and you don't feel any of those lines. So I'm going to take it over to the side here and just ever so gently now that I've used this wheel to do the bulk of the polishing work, I'm going to take it over to a cotton wheel. This has already been loaded up with some pink compound. Just get that out of the way for safety. Here's a nice polished button. All right, so now we've polished a few buttons here, and we're going to go downstairs and assemble that mechanism. Today we're going to be going over an assembly of the Saga mechanism and how we're going to put this together, kind of the risk mitigations that we're going to put in place when we start turning this into a production assembly, and some ideas that we have for that. So we're going to start with a shot of espresso. Very important to get things going. So we have the button, our threaded sleeve, our sliding sleeve. We have a flat wave spring. It's a really cool little spring here. We have our C-clip, our retaining button, and we have 3 ceramic ball bearings. This makes up our mechanism. First things first, actually, there's lots of things first. Okay, so right now we're just using a simple piece of foam with some holes drilled in it in order to ensure that parts aren't going to bump into each other and all the polished parts won't get scratched. In the future, we're going to be 3D printing or machining some nice little carriers for them with a lid to ensure that there's no foreign object damage on top of that, so we can take that into our assembly cell and work from there without anything ever contacting each other. Very critical for any polished parts. So first things first in assembling this mechanism, we're going to take our threaded sleeve and we're going to drop in our button. Nice perfect sliding assembly right there, right? Second thing we're going to do is we're going to take our sleeve, put it in position, right? Now, ever so carefully, we're going to start dropping in some ball bearings. So that's, one is in there already. Move to the next spot. Now we've got 2 assembled. Move to the third spot. There we go. Now I got all 3 balls located inside their respective holes. Now I take my flat wave spring, just thread it past those threads. It is clearing it, but because springs aren't exactly perfectly concentric, there will be some touching. So now that that's in position, I'm going to take my C-clip. I'm going to move it up into its respective groove. And then I'm going to pop that in place. Boom, done. Now I want to make sure that my flat wave spring isn't overlapping or going to bind in there. So that way it's not dropping down and getting in the way. Then we would take this, and this is going to be a press fit assembly that we can take apart at a later date. In the previous iterations we had them threaded, but the issue with that is that they can become undone and then the assembly can come apart, which we don't want to happen. So we're going to press this in place. And I'm not going to do it here because then it's permanent assembly for now. So do that, and that's essentially our mechanism. So this will pop up. It'll be stopped essentially by that face. So this will be stopping it against our threaded sleeve, and that'll be in the up position, and that'll be pushed up by our tip spring inside the pen body. And in this instance, when we push down, our flat wave spring brings us up. So that creates the tension against the tip spring. So that's a mechanism right there. Now to take this apart, this will be pressed inside. We leave a tiny bit of a gap so that we can essentially get a pair of side cutters in there and pull it apart. Not too much pressure. We're going to pull it apart like that. That will come out. Then push that through, pull this up, and all the balls will drop in there. Then C-clip will come off. This guy made us a little temporary fixture here to hold this. That will pull off like that. Then you can just kind of screw the wave spring past the threads. Just be careful not to stretch anything past its point of no return. And there we go. And that's our mechanism. So the tooling that we're going to essentially be building up for assembling these in any sort of quantity, we're going to replicate this foam in some hard plastic, maybe 3D print it. We're going to either machine or 3D print or however we want to do it. Carriers like this that will hold all of our buttons polished, and with a lid with some foam inside to prevent them from moving around and to prevent any foreign object damage. It's very critical with any polished parts. Even the smallest bit of grit on there and you wipe it and you're going to get a scratch, and we don't want that to happen. When it all comes together like this, really just a nice shop rag like this will work for assembling this. It's pretty straightforward. Some tweezers and essentially clean tools in a clean environment is critical. So here's our first iteration of the button and retaining screw. So this would essentially screw together. We put some Loctite in there. The downside is over a long period of time, it could make it so that this might come undone, and we don't want that to happen. So John came up with a nifty little press fit retaining button that we will be pressing in together into that. So we have a little pneumatic press that we're going to use. Right now we're just kind of hammering them with our prototypes, but we have a nice pneumatic press that we'll use with some Directional and Directional on top to ensure that there's going to be no damage to the part and no scratching. So this is the main difference between the two, other than dialing in all our tolerances and tweaking the machining process. More or less the same from the first iteration. This is the biggest change. This will be a little bit more difficult to put together, but it's going to ensure a more permanent solution that can still be taken apart if we need to. It should provide a bit more longevity in long-term use. So once we have our assemblies, put them inside a protective plastic sleeve, keep them together like that. That way nothing's touching each other. We're not touching the face where it's polished. We can stack up a few of those and then start to assemble them into our bodies. So this is my prototype we made last year. We've probably done several thousand clicks easily I use it a lot. There we go. So those are the parts needed to make that mechanism. Alright guys, thanks for joining us for Saga Saturday. Join us again next time. We'll go over a few more details, and we're going to start ironing out our assembly process. Now that we've started making, we've ironed out our machining process, and now we'll start putting things together. It's pretty exciting for us, so stay tuned.